We watched Andor, episode 11 here at Fatherly Fandom, so you know what time it is.
Time to hit that intro.
Woo!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, if it's your first time joining us, welcome. We're two dads who love all things fandom, from Star Wars to Star Trek, Marvel to DC, and Middle-earth on down to Westeros. We love it all, and we want to share all of our insights and love of all things nerdy to you, our viewers. So if that's your cup of calf, then we're here for you, and you should definitely subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on all of our amazing reviews and insights that we bring to all of our favorite fandoms. So thanks for tuning in, guys. My name is Chris Matthews, and I'm joined, as always, by the scruffy-looking nerf herder himself, Mr. Matt Parham. How you doing today, brother?
Not too bad. The nerfs are basically hurting themselves tonight, so feeling pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good, and that leads me into the question, did they have Nerf guns in the Star Wars universe?
Right, yeah, if they're hunting down a Nerf, do they have to go into their arsenal and basically pick out the Nerf-specific weapons? Is it Nerf or nothing whenever you're hunting the
It's got to be
the Nerfs out there in the Star Wars universe?
Yeah. And maybe they have a whole plan.
That's what, thinking in hindsight, we should probably put up a picture of a Nerf right about now in the podcast. So,
all right, noted. Nerf's up right now. You can see it right down here.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So what do we do today? We watch Andor episode 11, titled "Daughter of Ferrix," directed by Benjamin Caron and written by Tony Gilroy.
The man himself.
The man himself. So as always, guys, here, I like to look up the Rotten Tomatoes score on this. So I looked that up today, and no surprise, guys. Once again, 9 critics actually rated this episode on Rotten Tomatoes. They gave it 100% fresh. All of them thought that this episode was fresh. And the average rating from these 9 critics, 8.6. No rotten rating whatsoever. This is a trend that we get to see here on the Fatherly Fandom from week to week that we get to see. And so, yeah, that's what the critics think. Well, let's find out what these two dads think. So take it away, brother. What did you think of Andor episode 11?
I'd really not like to know what Kathleen Kennedy and the rest of the Disney and Lucasfilm execs think of the quality of this show and the fan response, because even though it might be minimal, it might be less than they had hoped for, the people that are tuning in are loving it, and I am no exception to that, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked this episode as well.
Me too.
It gives us a lot, even though this is one of those sort of transport or transition type episodes where we're taking the characters and getting them from one spot to another, and where something big's going to happen. You know, we know the finale's coming next week, but
all pieces on the board are just converging onto Ferrix, apparently, from what we're seeing in this episode.
Yeah, with the funeral coming up and all of that going on, the trap being set for Andor, possibly Luthen to make an appearance and be captured. But then out of the blue, we get a possible Imperial conflict with Luthen in this episode. That really caught me off guard. What about you, Chris?
Oh, man. If we're going to dig straight into the ending of this episode, holy crap. You know, one of the biggest complaints I've heard from people about the show is there's not enough pew-pew and a lot of space action.
Right.
But you've gotten a lot of, in these last 2 episodes, we've gotten a lot of that. And one of the best one-on-one space battles that I've seen in Star Wars at the end of this show. I was there at work watching this for the first time, and on my break, guys, and in the break room there, I was just like, whoa, as I saw this happening. So if you guys didn't know, Luthen's ship is called a Fondor Hullcraft, and that's this little ship that he has. And it's usually for commercial use, and Luthen actually has heavily modified this dang thing. So that's why they're like, oh, this Hullcraft is just, you know, regular ship and whatnot. But he has definitely tricked it out, and we get to see all those tricks in this episode, and it's pretty awesome. He's got He's got that projectile system that he used, which was amazing. I love just the mechanics of this and everything.
Yeah.
The tractor beam, and like how would you actually destroy a tractor beam like that in space? You would fling metallic objects at it, and this is exactly what we got to see. So I thought that was pretty ingenious. I've never seen it before in Star Wars too. So I was like, holy crap, that was awesome. And the effects looked amazing on this. And he's got those mounted turrets as well. He's taking out people left and right. And it's like, Luthen, dude, you're just a one-man army on this. And, you know, throughout the episode, you know, you're hearing from Mon Mothma talking about this 400,000 credits. And I really think that Luthen spent most of those credits on this damn ship of his. It's just, oh my God. Yeah. And the creme de la resistance is the laser weapon that he has coming out the sides. Kind of looks like Darth Maul's double saber there, you know, double-sided lightsaber. And, oh, my God, and that little spin move that he makes, I'm like, oh, jeez. And he hyperdrives on out of there.
It seemed like very specific, you know, utility there for really close dogfights, I guess.
Right.
You know, my guess is you would turn this on whenever you were out of any other type of weapon for, you know, if the enemy's coming in close. I wouldn't imagine that they would need to come in close very much for a space battle, but came in handy for this one. And ultimately, it just looks freaking cool. So
cool. Oh, my God. And we get to see a brand new class of Imperial cruiser, too. We've never seen this before. And fun fact, guys out there, the fun fact time here at Fatherly Fandom. It's time! It was actually meant to appear in Solo, a Star Wars story, but they actually cut it out of that film.
No. So I read up on this. They did cut it out of like the main scenes of the film, but it's actually still in there in a little commercial for the Empire going on in the background, and it's a blink and you missed it type shot. But yeah, it's in there, and I don't know if we're going to get too much further back in this, Chris, about the history of this particular design.
Yeah, so I looked that up as well. So yeah, fun thing. I'll have to look at that the next time I watch Solo. So
yeah.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, it was in the back, but I think it was supposed to feature more prominently in Solo, a Star Wars story, not just in a commercial in the back. But what this is an Imperial Cantwell class arrestor cruiser, and the design of the ship is probably the most interesting thing about this new vessel that we have here, because it's literally taken from one of the earliest concept pieces for Star Wars, the original Star Wars on here. And so this is basically paying respect to Colin Cantrell, the late and great. He passed away last year. He drew up some of the first designs for Star Wars, and he drew up this large spaceship with multiple dishes on it. And clearly, like if you look at the picture, we'll post it here. It's this ship altogether, and he drew up these concept pieces to cheer George Lucas up in the beginning, because all these studios were rejecting his pitch for this movie, and he never thought it was going to get made, so he made up all these concept art, and that's where this cruiser comes from. So it's pretty cool stuff.
But definitely the first fully realized arrestor cruiser in Star Wars cinematic history. So very, very cool to see.
Out of the blue. I did not expect to get this type of scene in this episode at all. And it makes it's really like, you know, it's this show has taken its time so much and been such a slow burn, and then you get these scenes like this action set scene, the space battle, and it's just like enjoying a good tiramisu or something like that. It's just like, oh my God, you know, we've been having a hearty, hefty meal here. Now I get to enjoy some dessert. We're back to Star Wars as it was in the beginning, and this is amazing. I enjoy it all the more.
Yeah, and there's a ton of classic Star Wars earmarks throughout the episode, in that we get a lot of practical effects, including aliens. You know, we haven't seen them very much.
Yeah, and speaking of, me and Matt actually make our our debut acting
Yeah, that's right.
careers on this episode of Andor right in the beginning. If you didn't know, we played
Yeah.
those two aliens. No makeup was required in those scenes on Arcana 5. We just came as we were, just hopped out of bed and came on set, and we were like,
Yeah.
hey guys,
That was
we're
the
fishing.
pajama shirt that I had
Yeah.
on.
That's right, and we captured some derelict prisoners from the Empire right there. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But no, guys, those aliens at the beginning of Arcana 5 that had the quad jumper out there were Caridian aliens. The main guy was a Ceceed Ock, and he was there with his brother. Freedy, I think is his name. Not Freddy. It's Freedy with 2 E's. So I kind of looked that up. And those were some interesting aliens, buddy. What did you think of that?
I mean, to me, again, I'm glad that they went with a practical effect, suits here, because it stays in the same tone as Mandalorian, the originals, and you just gotta love that kind of quality puppetry and makeup effects that are basically cutting edge, in that they're furthering the industry with Star Wars, even on television. And I think they did it again here because the aliens appear somewhat humanoid, but obviously very exaggerated features. But
Yeah.
Unlike other alien suits that you might see, one of my personal pet peeves is whenever I see any kind of makeup effect that has to do with hands, appendages, right? They'll make these longer fingers, and the joints in each of the sections of the fingers are longer, and you would think a fully functional hand would be able to grab things, manipulate things with the end of those long fingers. But we never get that. We always have just some kind of like weird, obviously you can tell it's a gloved hand there that's much smaller than what we're seeing. And it's just, for me, it's kind of one of those like, there's different ways that you could do that with some mechanics built into the glove, but they don't go that route. And here, we get to see these guys, they're sort of almost backwoods type of aliens. They're cracking up about having found these prisoners, and they're just messing with them, it turns out. They're willing to help them out, which again is just kind of off what we normally see in these types of scenes, and like it totally refreshing. We don't have to go through the typical cliche scene of them having to overcome these aliens as well as another obstacle on their efforts to continue to break out of the planet that they had been imprisoned on.
Yeah, once again, like the universe has their shared hatred of the Empire, and they're coming together and uniting over that fact. So that's what got them out of that sticky situation, if it were. So yeah, and it was just so cool to see. And once again, telling so much in so little time, because you get the sense with these fishermen, these alien fishermen, that the seas are drying up, all the fish are dying off because of what the Empire's doing in these prisons and everything. They're utilizing all the natural resources from these planets and not leaving anything for the locals. And this is what's happening all over the universe. This is what happens. This is what the Empire does. So it's really cool that we get to see that on a very small micro portion of this universe, and it fits into the story very well. And once again, we get to see Andor. He gets to go back to that cruise planet, that luxury planet or whatever. It's the vacation planet, the Hawaii of the the Star Wars universe. We get to see him go back to that, and he gets all of
mostly
his
abandoned.
stuff. Yeah. I wonder if they just picked up all of the people on there and shipped them off to all these places like Narcana 5.
Yeah, or it's just that the Imperial presence was too much, and nobody wanted to stay there anymore.
True.
So
true.
But yeah, it again shows the Empire's ever growing and expanding influence, and the dark times really settling in. So, just full of details in this episode, which makes it great. I found it was it would get to a point where the story almost felt like it was going a little bit too long, which is saying something because I prefer the longer storytelling. But
and this is one of the shorter episodes. It was like 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I was expecting it to actually go a little bit longer, but with the story that we got, it still very much makes me feel like we are just not going to get a lot of loose ends tied up next week. Personal opinion.
Yeah.
So, which is fine. I'm ready to see much more out of this show.
Yeah, and we get to find out that Andor's mom in this episode, Marva, passes away, so we don't even get to see the actor in this, and they're just off screen, pass away. But I loved how they introduced this through the droid's point of view, B2EMO, who imbued a ton of emotion, man, in this episode just for being a robot. And I gotta give it I love, like, this is the best thing I love about this episode. I love that shot of the eyepiece of the droid and the drink on top as it was sloshing around. And hats off to the cinematographer. The cinematographer on this show of Andor is Adriano Goldman. They did a phenomenal job with all those little moments, that little lens and everything. I love that. It's such an amazing shot. And it's a way of putting us as the audience into the droid, which seems to connect us more with B2EMO and the surprising level of grief that he displays through the droid's performance over Andor's mother's dying and everything, and the connection that he has to her. And it's amazing how much they imbue into this droid.
Well, and did you see how they kept that up as the episode goes on? We see the funeral procession through glass. You know, Andor finds out about his mother much removed from the situation. There's always just that kind of obstacle in our way to fully take on the grief of the situation, which I thought was a great cinematography little trick, or whatever you want to call it, technique that they used to put us as the audience in the mindset of the characters of Andor and Bix and all these characters that are just going through all of this stuff, one thing after another, and being removed from the situations that they want to be a part of.
Yeah, and I think with the idea of the death of Marva Andor, we are meant to slow this episode now. So you're meant to feel that this episode's slower and everything, which we find that drives into that final scene with Luthen in the battle in his ship and everything. And that I think that makes it all the better and everything. So this episode is meant to get some mourning, some grief, some slow down period before the big finale that we're getting. This is a penultimate episode, so we have this little slow moments in this episode that are giving us the time with this grief and everything. I love these little intricate things that they're putting in here, and it's a really cool detail that they had on Ferrix and the culture as they make their dead into the bricks in their
I
in
know.
their
I thought
city
that
and
was
everything.
quite
Such
an
a cool
idea.
detail. And all around, like I've noticed all throughout this season, like you see, and they would do shots of brickwork all throughout Ferrix and everything. And so if you notice, if you look in the backgrounds, there's tons of brickwork everywhere. So they're literally surrounded by their dead in the city. And so it's a really cool little cultural thing that they put in there with this show. But just hats off to the writing. Tony Gilroy! Good job with that.
And I particularly want to call out Joplin Sibtain, the gentleman that plays Brasso, which, you know, his
that
part
could be a
has
Star
never...
Wars name itself. Joplin.
Right. But his part has never been that large as, like, you know, the friend of Andor that's, you know, one of the workers on the planet and everything.
And he came by and helped out with Marva, with Bix and everything. And, like, he didn't get a lot of time, but you could tell that he really cared. He was a good friend to Andor, you know, and he was really involved.
And for me, the technique that he had to employ to act opposite a droid, you know, in a very emotional scene and like, you know, give really part of his emotion to what I can't imagine would be anything but maybe a cardboard box sitting there for him to play off of.
Oh,
as they're
you don't think
filming
that droid is practical? I thought it was a practical.
No, I'm sure it is, but
effect.
it's essentially a box, So like
Yeah.
there's not much grimacing going on or
Mm-hmm.
facial expressions that
No.
or cues or anything
Yeah.
like that. Maybe even the voice is added in post. I don't know. So
Good point.
yeah, it'd be tough. That's again why
Yeah.
these are professional actors.
That is the hardest thing, and that draws from inspiration from some of the original Star Wars too. When Mark Hamill had to be on set at Dagobah in this swampy thing with a puppet for hours and hours on end, just him acting with a puppet, and
Frank Oz.
yeah, Frank Oz's hand. That's a wrap, guys. Where am I going? But it just shows you the caliber of these actors and their performance when they can do that and just elevate all that stuff up and make it more realistic for us too. The only way we bought Master Yoda in Star Wars is because of Mark Hamill and his performance. The only way this droid, B, I think they call him just B in this episode too. And the only reason why he works so well is because of the actor and how he plays off of this character. So hats off.
Yeah.
Again, they're all just bringing their A game.
They really did, and I love that they just kept sprinkling more of those scenes throughout the episode, including at the end where he agrees to stay the night with the droid to make the
Begrudgingly.
robot feel comfortable. So
You could stay, So I had a kind of theory too. I was thinking about this because with B, I'm like, how are they going to draw this in? I was like wondering, do you think, and this is a long shot, and I don't think this is actually going to play out this way. Do you think that this droid is eventually going to become K2SO, Alan Tudyk's droid from Rogue One that we're going to be getting to see next season as well? Maybe this is the reprogrammed. Something happens, to this droid.
maybe.
Something happens to B, and he has to take out his drive. They did this in Solo as well, with, I forget the droid's name in that, but became part of the Millennium Falcon. So,
Right.
yeah. But, yeah, again, it's a long shot. I mean, their personalities, and they're doing a great job with these droids, and their personalities are so starkly different. So I don't quite think that that's there, but I was like, maybe they'll tie that in and make that into this other droid that we've seen that everybody very much enjoys, very much likes in Star Wars.
I kind of think that B will be sacrificed at a certain point.
Right. Yeah, I hope not.
He'll be a martyr to the rebellion.
No, B!
Yeah. They always love to do this with the cutest characters, and something is obliterate them.
It's gonna break my heart, dude. It's gonna break my heart if he goes down. I was already so heartbroken for him this episode. So much so that when Andor finds out about his mother passing away, it kind of, and this is a little detraction for me, a little quib on my part, just because the droid had so much time with the mother dying. And you get all that grief, you get all that tension, you get all that weight. When it comes to Andor, it's still very weighty, and you still feel it, and it's very emotional. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if it would be more emotional if we didn't have all that stuff with the droid. I feel like that took a lot of that, more so than what we got with Andor.
Right. And I think it just, again, speaks to the authenticity in the writing, and that he can't be there. Yeah. And he shouldn't be. He knows that. And I feel like he's going to end up being there because of where we're headed for the finale.
Yeah, he's coming.
But that separation was needed in this episode to build the tension and build up, sort of the motivation for him to go ahead and place himself in danger by going back to Ferrix. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and once again with the cinematography, once he finds out, Andor finds out about his mother dying, and once it, what does he do as soon as he gets off of the, Narcona 5 and gets out and makes it to a safe place? What do? You call your mother, try to get in contact with your mother. It shows how much he loves his mom, but at the same time, when he took that information and he's looking out there in the horizon into the water, that's directly, exactly, almost shot for shot what we see at the end of Rogue One with him and Jyn Erso as they're looking out onto the horizon. So it's kind of like a foreshadowing, or a homage to that, which I very much enjoyed. I got that right off the bat, and then we see Melchi leave. I was really surprised about that too. Like, he's there. He's like, we got to tell people about that, and I loved how they played that off. They're like, how many people do you think got out? And Andor's like, not enough. And this is the same thought that I had before he even said it. I'm like, not enough.
Yeah.
Because, Kino's not there. So
I know. I was bummed that there was no mention of him in this episode.
I was like, I thought that was great. So we might disagree on that. But I was like, yep, let Kino have that moment. I can't swim. That's the last time we see him. Good. Leave it there. That's all we need from him. He has impacted the story. He has impacted the character. He has played his purpose. Anything more is really not needed. At least my opinion. I don't think it's needed. But the idea is like they don't know how many people got out. Like we're seeing this from their point of view.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, because sometimes movies or shows put too much information in a scene, and you just are drawn out of it thinking there's no way that character could know that at this point. Yeah. Or, wow, they just happened to pick up a newspaper with that exact headline with the exact bit of information that they needed. How many times do you see on sitcoms where they turn on the TV and it's right on,
I love it when they get a call, too, and they're like, hey, turn on your television. They click the TV on, and it's at the perfect spot on the news. It's like, who has the news up for one? And are you going to turn on your TV and see the exact news?
One of my favorite gags on Arrested Development was how they made fun of that from time to time. So
another great show, and
they turn on the TV and it was like, well, it'll be right after this commercial. Let's just wait,
Arrested Development, very apropos, because we can link that to Star Wars. Ron Howard was the narrator of that show and producer.
There you go.
So he directed Solo, a Star Wars story, which is coming up a lot in this episode. So there you go.
So what do you think, brother? Time for our ratings overall?
Yeah, let's go into our ratings of this episode. If you guys are first joining us and watching us for the first time here, again, welcome. How's it going, guys? Hope you're having a good day.
What are you doing watching episode 11?
Well, I mean, if they're picking up on it, or a lot of people are coming in and catching up, coming in and watching, because it's building a lot of buzz right now. So welcome, guys. Glad to have you. But what we do on this show is we rate these episodes 1 out of 10, and these episodes have been getting a lot of 9s and 10s, and I think there was an 8 out of 10 in one of the episodes.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's the rating system that we have, and so this is where we're going to discuss those. And so for me, I'm going to say this is a good 9 out of 10. Like you said, last week's episode was just so pitch perfect. Like I said, masterpiece. I'm still sticking with that. Just everything lined up perfectly. All the acting, the pieces, all the structure. It was great. But yeah, like you said, this one was a little slower, and I like that. But at the same time, like, it's just so hard to follow up an episode like No Way Out. That was just incredible television that we got. But still, this is an amazing show. We got an amazing action piece right at the end. We got amazing emotion. And so I felt very emotional throughout this episode for these characters. I actually feel a lot for them. Even Bix, like, seeing her as disheveled as she is with the Imperials, we didn't even discuss that. And they were asking her about whether or not, like, Krieger is the one that she set up Andor with.
Yeah, I feel bad for this guy. Everybody's just so ready to throw him under the bus.
And in that, like, hologram picture, it kind of looks like CG. It looks CGI to me. I didn't even know if it was like a real person or not. I was like, are they just making up this character? Like, is this a made up character in the show? Like, are they actually making him up in the show as well? Like, does he actually really exist? Even Luthen said, to Saul Guerrero, he's like, I've never actually even really met him. We just passed information to each other. Maybe he's just like a fictional character in this universe that everybody's just blaming stuff on.
Yeah.
And so that was, but it was really hard. It was hard to see Bix in that state and to just go through all this torture and everything too. And just, it was tough. So all this stuff is just bringing it down. Again, like we didn't mention, Forrest Whitaker did a phenomenal job again as Saul Guerrero, and that level of like when he's finding out about Luthen, having somebody in the ISB, he figures that out in this episode, and then when he's like looking around and he's just like starts to be instantly paranoid, and that's kind of melds him into the character that we see during Rogue One with this super hyper paranoid person, and so we're seeing that this is the beginning of that too, and their idea of like, this is coming to a point where everybody has been hiding for so long, staying low, keeping low, trying to stay out of the limelight. And they're still trying to do that with Krieger. That's why they're trying to sacrifice these 30 men, plus Krieger. And they brought that up, too, all the time.
You see that, by the way, with Saul Guerrero, you see that X-Wing outside of his...
Yeah, he's got a couple of them.
Yeah, a little cave there. Mm-hmm. I was wondering, actually, when do X-Wings appear in the Star Wars canon history?
Pretty much in between the times of the Clone Wars and the Empire. There's different manufacturers in the universe that come up with these designs and everything. And so there's like a prototype that was an X-Wing that came out. And you can see it in, Revenge of the Sith. They have a proto X-Wing type that they're using in the battle in the opening sequence that the clone troopers are using. So it's in between there that they're kind of using. There is a whole backstory to that kind of stuff. I don't have the information in front of me for that, but it is in there. So it's around that time that they develop these ones, and people are just picking them up as they go. The Y-Wings,
it's not unusual that he would have a couple of them there.
Yeah. And in Clone Wars, like with the Y-Wings, they have they use those in the Clone Wars, and in Rebels, they actually steal a bunch of the Y-Wings to build up their fleet. And basically what happens with the rebellion is they're just picking up scraps. They're picking up anything that they can get to form this bulk of fleet that's just a hodgepodge of whatever they can find. So they're the underdogs, and that's what they're going to use whatever they can. So, So...
Anyway, the rating, 9 out of 10. 9
out of 10 for me. But I did kind of want to still talk about Saul Guerrero and these forces that we... Matt's like, come on, get on with this. But this is what this episode is all about, is they're so into hiding and everything, but it's now or never. It's do or die, and that's what the whole thing with Luthen at the end of this episode, finally fighting back. It's like, it's over. It's war now. Like, let's call it war. Like Saul Guerrero said, that's absolutely right. They've been hiding. They can't do that anymore. Mon Mothma's pinched in too, as she's sitting there, and explaining that, and her daughter as well is we get a little bit more with that about her daughter, like being overly, like, she's got this religion that I guess that she doesn't share with her mother now, and that was an interesting scene.
Do you think? Yeah, I was wondering if that ritual was something that was a little force sensitive or whatnot. Just how she was talking about it.
They were talking about like the elder or something, and like, you haven't had any quarters or suitors or anything or whatnot. So I think it all plays into the fact that we get a little bit more insight. It's like, Mon Mothma doesn't really care about arranged marriages or whatnot, but her daughter is very faithful into whatever this practice is, and so she's probably like, okay, yeah, the first, Chandrillan male that I'm going to see that's from a higher class will be my husband, because this is the faith that I believe in. So that's why she was so concerned, and that's why she's very upset, and she knows she's in a bad spot right now. And I think ultimately, and it's really hard and heartbreaking to see the look on her daughter's face, like when during this episode, she gives her a glance, and it's just like the sense of hatred for her mom, and I felt that too as a parent.
Disdain.
It's like, ooh, I like that's a look you never want to experience as a parent from your child, and I can't imagine like the grief and the pain that Mon Mothma is feeling with that, knowing that she is doing everything she can on the side of good for the rebellion and everything else, and still failing completely. So I think that this is, again, do or die time for all of these characters, Luthen, Mon Mothma, everybody coming up, culminating into what we're going to see tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next week. And it's going to be interesting to see because, now they can't hide. I think Mon Mothma's going to realize, like, it's up. The game's up. I'm not, I can't do anything else. I have to be full in on this. I think everybody's going to have to be full in on the rebellion after whatever happens next week. And then that's what we're going to see for season 2 is the real actual rebellion working, fighting against the Empire. So all that to say, 9 out of 10 for me. What do you think? What's your rating for this episode, Matt?
9 out of 10 for me.
All right. All right, that's it for us at Fatherly Fandom. Just kidding, guys. So 9 out of 10. Yeah, from both of us here at Fatherly Fandom. It was a spectacular episode, right, brother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So really not a whole lot to not like about it.
No, right?
And,
I could go on and on here, as I have.
Yeah. Like you were saying, the pacing is probably intentional.
Yeah, I think so.
It was just not my favorite episode, but still had a lot of great stuff in it. Definitely a 9 out of 10.
Absolutely. So, yep. High ratings from us. I don't think we've rated anything less than an 8 out of 10 on this show. So many 10 out of 10s. Kind of refreshing not to give this a 10 out of 10, I gotta say. You know?
Yeah.
So Matt, do you have anything else before we bust off of this tractor beam, blow up some TIE fighters, and hyperdrive on out of here?
No, just catch more of our show coming up. We're going to be we're going to be rewatching Rogue One after Andor ends here to give you our follow-up review and more insight, of course. After seeing what happens in Andor, maybe it will inform us a little bit more about the plot of Rogue One.
Yes.
And then we're going to be moving right into Willow, watching the original first, and then on to the weekly show premiering on Wednesdays, starting November 30th on Disney+.
Yep. I'm rooting for Willow. Matt wants it to be the worst thing ever, so can't wait to
review it. I want it to be great.
No, that's what you said last time around when we reviewed episode 10 of Andor.
Oh, yeah.
I wish Willow was the worst thing ever.
I've got a pretty dry set. No, I'm very much looking forward to Warwick Davis's return to the role. So
okay, good, because the community was up in arms. They were like, Matt, how dare you? Willow is the best thing ever, and we want this show to succeed.
I'll tell you what the best thing ever is. You watch Life's Too Short with Warwick Davis, and that is just about the best mockumentary series I've seen, aside from The Office and Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show and Spinal Tap and a dozen others.
Me and Matt love mockumentaries, and they're just the best. So,
Modern Family,
big fans of all that stuff. So thanks for joining us, guys. You can find us on the internet.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah. Get Parks and Rec in there. Okay, so thanks for joining us, guys. You can find us on the internet at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, simply at Fatherly Fandom. We now have a podcast version of the show, which you might be listening to right now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and basically anywhere you can listen to podcasts. So you can find us simply by searching Fatherly Fandom on any of these applications. And as always, guys, from our families to yours,
have a good one.
And may the Force be with you.